Real estate investing can have an incredible upside, but it can also ruin your life. I want to share some of the nightmares that I've had in my career and the solutions that we created for those nightmares. Please learn from my unfortunate experiences so that you don't have to go through them yourself. My second fix and flip ever, I nicknamed Bagpiper. Now, obviously, your first fix and flip is the scariest fix and flip because, as human beings, we're usually terrible at things that we've never done before. Well, if you saw this episode of Flippin' Nightmares, you know that my first fix and flip was a disaster that I ended up moving into. This one should have been a little easier because now I had real-world experience under my belt, but it wasn't. It was spring of 2014, and I was about 3/4 of the way through the construction process on my first flip when I decided that I was going to purchase my second and start work on it. That was my first mistake. I was so gung-ho about getting into the game that I bit off more than I could chew. I should have allowed myself to go through the entire process on one fix and flip before I decided to dive into a second, so that I could see every step of the entire process from beginning to end and make corrections as necessary. Instead, my attitude was, I'm doing this. Come hell or high water, I will be a real estate investor. So I dove in. I had purchased and attended real estate investor education before I bought this house, to the tune of $20,000. So I felt confident in my knowledge, but more importantly, I was sick of my job, sick of working for the man, and I knew I had to get out of my comfort zone if I was going to grow. So when an agent I knew brought this house to me, I ran the numbers like I had been taught, and everything seemed like it was going to work out. I bought the house and took on the project. Now, I bought this house for $200,000. The only contractor I knew was busy working on my first flip, so I hired a contractor named Davey that was referred to me by my real estate agent, Marco, to come and fix this house up. The goal was to list it for $330,000 when we were done, with a profit of close to 30 grand, which means that our break-even point was $300,000. Davey came with high praise from the real estate agent. He was Marco's cousin. He told me he had worked with Davey before and that he could knock out the project in 90 days with top-notch quality. I was still green and I had no idea how to vet a contractor, as my only experience with construction was on my first flip, which wasn't even completed yet. The contractor in question was given the green light to start the project the day we closed on the property. Everything started out peachy. The first month went by, progress looked good. The second month went by, and I was still pretty happy. But towards the middle of the third month, I started to realize that we weren't nearly far enough along in the project to complete construction within the agreed upon timeline. When I approached the contractor with the concern, he simply told me not to worry. We might be a few days off, but we'll get it done. I trustfully acknowledged. However, 3 months came and went, as did 4 months and 5 months. Now we were pushing into the 6th month of the project. Keep in mind, we usually finance these deals with hard money, which carries with it a high interest rate, in this case 12%. We talked about this in a previous video. If you want more info on how to fund these flips, check out the link in the description. Now, because this was hard money and it had an interest rate attached to it, that meant that every extra day that passed was more money out of the profit margin. To add insult to injury, as we neared the end of the project, the original bid of $45,000 crept and crept up as they continued to ask for more and more money to finish the project. At this point, I was between a rock and a hard place, because I knew we needed to get this project done in order to list the property at the planned $330,000 that Marco, the realtor, had assured me that it would be worth. By the time I finished the project, I had paid Davey $65,000, which was almost 45% over the original planned budget of $45,000. It had also taken twice as long, which means that I had accrued twice the holding costs that I had planned on. I sat down and did the math, and I realized at that point that I would only make $5,000 if we sold the property for the after repair value that Marco had calculated. I called Marco to let him know that Davey and his team had finally finished the project and that we needed to meet over there to prepare to list the home to put it on the market. When we met, we walked through the property. Marco started pointing out quality issues. Because I had very little experience at this point in my career with construction, I had no idea what to look for prior. But I was frustrated because Marco was the one that recommended Davey based on his speed and quality, both of which had failed to cut the mustard. After I had copiously compiled a list of the things that needed to be fixed or upgraded from Davey's work, knowing that it was going to cost me extra, I asked Marco what he thought we could list it for. He said $280,000. Now keep in mind that I had been working under the pretense that we would be listing this thing for $330,000. That's the whole reason that I bought the property and took on the project in the first place. I was furious, but I knew that I needed to act quickly so that my holding costs wouldn't rack up even more than they already had. After an argument with Marco, I finally relented and allowed him to list the property for $280,000. After about a month, we received an offer for $279,900, which I accepted. All in all, I lost $50,000 on this project. My first deal had been a failure that I had moved into. My second deal was a bust. I felt that I had no business in the fix and flip game, and at this point, I would have gotten out if it wasn't for the fact that I'd already purchased and started working on my third fix and flip, which deserves its own Flippin' Nightmares episode. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so that you don't miss it when it drops. Even though I lost $50,000 on this project, I did gain some very valuable experience and some knowledge on what not to do. I learned not to lean on other people to do your numbers. Running your own numbers on a property is the most important part of investing in real estate. It's the difference maker between making money and losing money. My mistake here was that I allowed my lack of experience to affect the confidence I had in my training and rely solely on the numbers that my agent Marco had told me. Had I done my own numbers on this deal, I wouldn't have purchased it in the first place, avoiding the loss. Trust but verify. I learned to more closely manage my contractors. It's important to understand what phase of construction you should be in and when. Had I had an understanding of what the timeline would look like through every step of the project, it wouldn't have taken me until 2 weeks before we were supposed to be done to realize that we were behind. And finally, I learned that losses are an important part of education. You will do bad deals. If they make you quit, then you've failed. But if you learn from them and never make those same mistakes again, then they were a success in their own right. As I always say, if you take action, you never fail. You either win or you learn. As you can see, there's risk in real estate. And I'm not your attorney or your accountant, so I'm not qualified to give you direct advice that would be applicable in your exact situation. These are just some of the things that I've picked up along the way and have found success with. There are always risks in any of these strategies, so make sure you're educated before you go out and try them on your own. A great place to start is our weekly live education webinar. Get access to our nationwide community of real estate investors. We meet on Zoom every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time for exclusive trainings, real deal walkthroughs, question and answers, guest speakers, and all around real estate investor shenanigans. Beginners, experts, and everyone in between is invited. Links in the description below. There's no better place to start getting your investor legs. And best of all, we made it free, just for you. I can't wait to talk with you live. We also just started a new podcast. So for those of you who would like to experience our content in that format, links are in the description. I'm curious what you thought of this episode of Flippin' Nightmares. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, or if you would have done things differently, please comment in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please smash that thumbs up button. It's an easy and free way to help support the channel. Also, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell, as we will be bringing you some amazing content very soon. We'll see you on the flip side.